Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed Live. We are super excited to have you joining us today from wherever you're streaming in from or joining the stream from, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, or Learn TV. If you do have questions, we're looking at all those channels, so feel free to post your questions in the chat or say hi or comment on anything interesting you might see. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot of things. So as you all know, we are streaming every Wednesday at 9 a.m., nothing new. But this month, we will be doing the live news update. So again, for questions, you can head over to Learn TV, and we're going to get right into the Azure SQL news update, where we have lots of guests. I think we have 4 guests planned on the show today with some demos, some really cool stuff, some really cool announcements, some announcements that just went live like minutes ago or maybe at the same time that we started streaming. So we're super excited to get to share all those latest updates with you. So let's get right into the show. I want to start by talking about some product updates. Now, we didn't have a lot of big product updates this month, but we did have one special product update, and that is the public preview announcement of this new Azure SQL migration extension in Azure Data Studio. Now, some of you may have seen this before. We did an episode on our Migrating to SQL series maybe a month ago, but now it's in public preview. So we thought for this segment, we would actually bring on the lead PM for this capability, and that is Mohamed. So Mohamed, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Anna. Glad to be here.
We are glad to have you. And before we get into kind of the topic, I just wanted to know if you could give our viewers a brief overview on what you do.
Sure. I'm a senior program manager here at Microsoft in the Azure SQL team. My focus has been helping customers migrate databases to Azure SQL. And in that process, my team builds products that we deliver to our customers to help that migration experience become as simple and easy as possible.
Awesome. Cool. So products like this new extension that you're going to tell us all about.
That's right. Yeah, I'm super happy to announce this. We literally just went live 30 minutes ago. And this is a brand new Azure SQL migration extension that we've announced inside Azure Data Studio. So this is a product that we believe our customers can use while they manage and operate databases using Azure Data Studio. They can now use the same platform to migrate databases to Azure SQL. And I'm going to show you how easy and simple that is with the architecture that's powering that capability.
Awesome. Great. Before we get into how it works, can you explain like why you kind of invested in this new space for using Azure Data Studio for migrations?
Yeah, so we have had multiple tools to help our customers migrate databases, to do assessments, to do migrations, to do experimentations, and those have been popular with our customers and have been around for a few years. But listening to customers and the community, the constant feedback that we get is, the world has changed, the database migration projects have evolved over time, and they wanted capabilities that evolve with time and also become as simple as possible. Instead of having multiple tools do different tasks for you, we wanted to bring in a unified experience where you could start assessing databases and migrating using the same product without having to leave that interface. So in that process, and we know that Azure Data Studio is a very lightweight platform that our customers use today to manage and operate their databases. So why not build a migration capability inside that? And that was the thinking behind it.
Awesome. Cool. So how does it work?
Sure. Let me get straight into the architecture on how this works. So basically, what we have here is a snippet of the overall architecture on how the product is designed and how we expect customers to migrate databases. So on the left-hand side, what you have is your on-premises environment. Typically, a customer would have a SQL Server database or instance, and they would have file share backup locations where they'd capture their backup files. We want customers to run this extension in Azure Data Studio running in their environment. And with the help of Azure Database Migration Service, which is a service that's built to do database migrations to Azure SQL. And this is a service that we will provide as a backend service that can power your migration. So typically, customers would install the extension, and through that wizard in the extension, we'll walk you through how to set up and configure the Azure Database Migration Service, and we'll help you deliver database migrations to your target Azure SQL. today, as part of the announcement, we are supporting Azure SQL Managed Instance and Azure SQL Virtual Machines as a target platforms for migrations. And we hope that we can also enable Azure SQL Database in future. Now, one of the important pieces in this is to be able to access your on-premise source databases and your backups. And for that, we've introduced a capability to install self-hosted integration runtime that is provided by Azure Data Factory. So we've done the plumbing under the hood to make sure that self-hosted integration runtime can now talk to Azure Database Migration Service and make that migration journey as seamless as possible for you.
Awesome, very cool. And I've actually walked through this, and it is very good experience. So it's cool that it's finally going to be available for more people to try out. One question I was wondering is, can customers both assess and migrate their databases using this extension?
That's right. So using the extension, you can kick off an assessment, assess the database, look at its target readiness, look at any migration issues or blockers there are for migrating your database, and then jump straight into migration. And the kind of scenarios that we support today are basically lifting your on-premise SQL Server databases to an Azure SQL Virtual Machine, or modernizing it to a SQL Managed Instance in both online and offline modes. And what that really means is if you have a business critical or mission critical application that can't afford a heavy downtime, you can use this product to migrate your databases and pretty much cut over in a short duration for those business sensitive applications. More importantly, we also have the capability with this product to now modernize if you're already on Azure. If you're running SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machines, you can use the same product to now modernize to Azure SQL Managed Instance and the migration of databases using this.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that you could use it for moving from IaaS to PaaS. That's pretty
That's
neat.
right.
This service, it seems pretty advanced. Is there any cost associated? Like, do you have to pay for DMS, or do you have to pay for any of the other components of this extension solution?
No, absolutely not. So both the extension and the Azure Database Migration Service are provided at no cost to the customer. So all you have to do is install the extension, configure the wizard, and off you go with your migration. The only thing that we'll ask you to do in terms of accessing your on-premise database and backups is to install the integration runtime. And we would want you to have a machine that's available that can connect into your source environment. So there's absolutely no cost in using the service or the extension itself. And to get started, you can go into aka.ms/Azure SQL ADS migration, where we announced today the capabilities, and you can get started with some documentation as well.
Awesome, cool. I mean, it's super cool to have you on, like, literally hot off the press. You just announced this. Is there anything you can show us about, like, how easy it is to set up or run or configure or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll quickly show you a snippet of what this looks like. So this is the Azure SQL migration extension that we announced today. And typically in Azure Data Studio, you're already managing your databases, you're already connected, and you're querying or you're running operations. You will now see this extension that's visible once you install it. And when you click on it, you can quickly get to this wizard by clicking on the Migrate to Azure SQL button. And it's a simple step-by-step wizard that will guide you through the process. But I just want to quickly show you how we start off with an assessment. If I have an on-premise SQL server with multiple databases, I'm just going to choose all of these and run an assessment. And you saw how quickly we can actually go and assess all your databases and tell you the readiness for it. So here it's telling me that I assessed 4 databases, and 3 out of those 4 are ready for migrating to my SQL Managed Instance because I want to modernize. And if I click on this, I can actually see the results. Typically, there are some blockers in some of the databases that I don't want to migrate. And before I migrate, as a customer, I want to go and resolve this. But the rest of the databases are fine. I can simply pick one of these and just start migrating to my Azure SQL Managed Instance.
Cool, awesome. Feels pretty straightforward. And what I like is that every step of the way, you're kind of leading us to tell us what we should do next. So there's hopefully not too many places to go awry or miss a step or something like that. Mohamed, as we kind of close out on this segment, I wanted to ask if you had any advice for customers who are starting to think about maybe migrating or using this extension.
Yeah, obviously, migration is an important discussion with many of our customers. We work with customers day in and day out who are digitally transforming their businesses and are looking at database migrations as that leverage to accelerate their business motions. We highly recommend, there's a ton of documentation that's out there that we published in both in terms of tools and methodologies that you should adopt. So we'd highly recommend you go and read those documentation, and do reach out to us. We are here to help you. And if you have feedback, either through the product or through our documentation, we are willing to sort of, lend a hand and help wherever we can.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Congrats on the announcements, and to our viewers, go check this out. You're not going to want to miss the latest in this new extension for Azure Data Studio. Thanks so much, Mohamed.
Thank you, Anna.
Awesome, very cool. Always cool to have someone on right at the start of a new announcement. Like, we kind of get like the hottest news, and now you guys all know that we have the best news coming in. So that's good to know, and we're always happy to have Mohamed and other members of our team on. Now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about blogs and videos. So I'm going to get right into it, and of course, as always, we're going to start with the Azure All Up blog. And this one right here that you're seeing, you might be wondering, okay, this is streaming analytics. What does this have to do with Azure SQL and SQL Server? Whoops, that's not the right screen. So why I wanted to highlight that Microsoft was named a leader in this Forrester Wave for streaming analytics, you can see Microsoft is right up here. So we're really kind of like the top here in the leader category in itself. But the reason I wanted to bring this up for SQL is because behind the scenes, Azure Stream Analytics provides a SQL language. And a big reason that this is useful for our customers, useful for new customers, is because you can use that familiarity that you have with SQL to help you quickly do things like machine learning, anomaly detection, and streaming from various services. Some of our services, like Azure SQL Edge, actually have Azure Stream Analytics built into that service so that you can kind of make decisions on the fly at the edge. In other situations where you're doing IoT or other sorts of things and streaming into Azure SQL Database, maybe you're doing some hybrid transactional analytical processing, or maybe you're just bringing that data in. Azure Stream Analytics works really nicely with Azure SQL Database. So just something to keep in mind. And, it's good to know that not only your data platform is kind of a leader in the Forrester Wave, which SQL Server and Azure SQL and Microsoft have always been, but also that the streaming and the other services that support those database platforms are doing well as well. So that's why I wanted to mention that. The next thing I wanted to mention was some topics related to migration. Now, Mohamed talked to us about the new migration extension in Azure Data Studio, but we did announce some other things with Azure Migrate. Again, when we're thinking about migration, we're not just thinking about migrating the data, but also the data and the application. So I thought it would be interesting and useful to call out that discovering and assessing your apps, specifically ASP.NET apps at scale with Azure Migrate, became available recently. So that's what you're seeing over here. So you see it's in preview now to see and assess your Azure apps, or sorry, your on-prem apps to moving to Azure App Service. Another thing that we announced related to migration was this idea of app containerization. So that's basically this idea here that you see. Let me make that a little bigger for you all. But this idea that you see here, so you can basically lift and shift your applications up into AKS and Azure App Service. So it just makes it much easier and smoother to basically make no code changes to your applications and move them into the cloud. So that's the latest in Azure Migrate. Be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to check out the latest from our team, that new Azure Data Studio migration extension. Now, from the security side of things, we had two interesting blogs I wanted to call out. The first one was Innovate Securely with Azure. And this one was really interesting because it basically stressed the importance of security and how you can best secure your cloud estate in Azure. It had tips for things like multi-factor authentication, Azure Defender, and by the way, Azure Defender for SQL is something that you can get in SQL VM, SQL Managed Instance, and Azure SQL Database. So this was pretty cool. This one was also a pretty big flex from Microsoft. And I say that kind of with jest, but also I kind of felt like it was. Let me just show you this. And my bad, I did not have this pulled up quite yet. But I want to show you some of the leaders that we see here. So first, when you think about us and the Gartner Magic Quadrants, again, and this is why I say it's a flex. Like, we're a leader in like 7 different areas. So access management, endpoint management, cloud access security brokers, information archiving, endpoint protection platform. So when it comes to kind of securing your data estate, your application estate, your whole digital transformation journey, Microsoft is a big security leader. And the other one was for Forrester Wave, where we also have some pretty impressive kind of qualifications from the Forrester Wave. Now, I've mentioned Forrester Wave and Gartner a few times. These are big analyst companies. They're third-party companies that kind of analyze the market and figure out who's in kind of stack ranking, who's leaders, who's visionaries, who's maybe lagging behind. But what you can see is that any way you kind of slice it, whether it's security or streaming, analytics, we're a leader. And I just think that's really cool. And that's why I wanted to kind of call out that flex. The other flex that they said was that Microsoft employs more than 3,700 security experts and spends more than $1 billion on security every year. So I thought that was pretty cool. One thing, I think really, and you'll just have to go read the article, but one thing that the article just really stresses is how much of a priority security is to Microsoft, which I think is important. And so I wanted to call it out even in this data space. Speaking of security, Azure Government Top Secret became generally available for US national security missions. So Top Secret is kind of like the highest level of security clearance that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's others, but so you can now see this new cloud kind of service that's become GA and some of the new kind of certifications that it meets. So you can innovate securely with Azure, not only because of this new Gov Cloud, but also because of all of the things you just saw about the qualifications and the investments that Microsoft makes towards security. We have some comments from YouTube, so appreciate the love. Someone Purvy says really informative, and James says wonderful speech. Speech maybe not be what I'm going for, but I'm glad that this is useful for you all, and I think security is really important. All right, so let's keep moving along with our blog topics. The final blog I wanted to mention from the Azure blog. So Azure blog is kind of like this all up Microsoft blog. So they talk about a lot of different things. For Azure data specifically, we had one blog, and that is maximize the value of your data in the cloud. So this is an event that we are running near the end of September. And I'm sure Marisa is going to tell you all more about it near the end of the show. But this is something you're going to want to put on your calendar. This is an event dedicated towards Azure Purview and governance. If you haven't heard of Azure Purview, it's kind of our new governance solution, and we're innovating really, really strongly in this space. And again, it just kind of goes along with the themes that we have around security and the importance of data governance and protection. So something to go ahead and put on your calendar as well. All right, let's move on from those high-level blogs and talk about Data Exposed, which you're watching now, by the way. But in addition to these live news updates, which you've tuned into, we also do pre-recorded episodes, which release on Thursdays, and we have some MVP episodes that we release every month, as well as other live shows. So here's kind of a glance at the episodes we release. We're doing some mini series. That's why you'll see things like episode 7, episode 4, etc. We have 2 series going on right now. One is the Migrating to SQL series. So that one's been a really interesting one. We've had great guests like Mohamed on that series. And the other series is Azure SQL Virtual Machines. Another great series to follow along. Folks like David Pless and Pamela Hood are giving us great insights on how to get the most out of your Azure virtual machines. And I have a great surprise for you all in just a moment related to that. Before I get to that, I just wanted to call out the latest live episodes that we've had. We're live, but you can still go watch them. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to see them all. Last week, we did a really exciting episode on Azure SQL Hyperscale. And this was really the first deep dive we've ever done on Hyperscale on Data Exposed. So definitely recommend checking that one out. We had some really cool demos from Davide Mauri and Denzel Ribeiro. And for our live episodes, we also have a security series going. So you can go check out our network security episode if you really want to nerd out. I love nerding out about network security. So this was a really fun one. And then we also had an Azure Data Studio Power Hour. I guess this was actually the very beginning of August or the end of July, but we had, I think, 6 folks from the Azure Data Studio team come on and show us some of their cool tips and tricks. I learned a lot in that episode. So again, that's not one that I would recommend skipping. So go check out those episodes. Now, just a moment ago, I mentioned how we were doing some interesting stuff around SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machines. And I thought it would be really exciting to actually bring on an external guest. We're going to bring on, let me pull him up. We're going to bring on Henk Valk from FullData to tell us a little bit more about this really exciting solution that he's built. So Henk, thanks so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Henk Valk. I'm the founder of FullData, a company based out of the Netherlands. We're a company with specialists on the Microsoft data platform. And performance is our hobby. So we like to push all the databases to the maximum, see how fast we can go. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you on. I know you've been a big member of the SQL community for a very long time and a big fan of speed and benchmarking, like you mentioned. So I want to get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your recent SQL data loading benchmarking? Was there some special cause that made you do this? And if for those of you who kind of missed what it is that Henk did, it's loading 8 terabytes an hour into SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. So can you tell us, like, was there a special cause that kind of led you to go figure this out?
Yes, we were helping a customer. They were migrating all their applications and databases to Azure. And everything was going smooth, but there were a couple of databases that are really high demand when it comes to throughput or really low latency IOs. And they said, well, can you help us to benchmark and show us what is possible in the cloud today? And they reached out to me because I set some benchmarks records in the past on premise. So basically, they challenged me to say, hey, see if you can beat your numbers with Azure. And that's what we did.
It definitely sounds like a challenge. And I think you're being very humble, but like you've set some world records with SQL Server on-prem. So kind of they're bringing this challenge to you, except now in the cloud. Can you tell us, where specifically you were able to help out here?
So I think, well, the big difference between on-prem and the cloud was on-prem, we spent like 6-7 weeks to get things done. And this benchmark in the cloud cost me less than a day. So that shows the beauty of the cloud. And so traditionally, the I/O is the throughput is the Achilles heel of any data platform. And we were testing all the flavors available in Azure, like the premium SSDs, the ultra disks. And I noticed that the high end, the top throughput is like 2 gigabytes a second, which means like you can read like a gigabyte of data from files and writing like a gigabyte. But this had to beat my old world record. I had to load at least twice the speed. So I thought, okay, what other options are available? And there I came across I would say a brilliant concept. You basically build like an enterprise SAN in the cloud, and you connect that SAN via iSCSI. So you have all your VMs, and if you need power, you just connect and hook it up via iSCSI. And this solution is built by Silk. It's multi-cloud, but it really shines on the Azure platform.
Cool.
But besides talking, maybe let's show a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a look.
So we're connected to an 128 core M series Well, here you see the staging folder with 128 files that we want to load as quickly as possible. And these are TPCH line item files. These are horrible to load. So if you can load these, anything else will be faster. The magic trick is you have to assign each bulk insert task to its own unique scheduler. So there we go. We're maxing out all 128 cores, right? 100% utilized. And if we look at the throughput, this is the real beauty. If we switch over to the dashboard, there we go. We see smooth 20 million rows a second being loaded, reading like over 2.5 gigabytes of data from files, and the beauty also writing well over 2 gig, maxing out, leveraging 120 of these cores. The others are for network. If we switch to the Silk data platform dashboard, we see smooth, constant throughput on the IOPS, right? The latency is 1.3 milliseconds under this full load, which is, it's great. Right? And there we see all the files from the work queue have been loaded in a couple of seconds. Yeah, and if you do the maths, this is like, 8 terabyte an hour.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stuff, Henk. I was looking at this architecture just recently, and I was thinking, sometimes people come to us and they say, I can't really get the performance for these most demanding workloads in Azure. So you would say, like, you probably can, right?
I would say yes. Typically, you can lift and shift any workload, and I think the performance, well, we outperform the on-prem world, so performance should not be a showstopper.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Henk. This has been super useful. I want to tell everyone that we put a link to your blog, your website, and even your contact info at our news blog. So if you head over to aka.ms/news update, you can get all the updates, all the links to everything that Henk just showed. So you can get a little bit dive deeper or maybe ask questions if you have them. Henk, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was really useful, really interesting. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, I'll just give a brief reminder. Remember that everything you see in the video today, whether you're watching it live or pre-record or after it's been recorded, will be hosted at aka.ms/Azure SQL News Update. And this is where we post all the blogs, all the links from all the talks that we did, all the videos, everything you can find from this video, you can find in that blog post. So that's something to keep in mind. With that being said, let's keep moving right along. We are going to get back into some slides so I can show you the rest of the blogs that have come out. And really, that's quite a few blogs. So let's get right into it. First, we're going to be starting with the the SQL Server Techcommunity, and we have two big releases here. One was the Data SQL Client for Preview 1. Remember, they're doing two previews, I think, per year or per kind of version. So this is the first one in 4.0, and you can see some of the big updates that came to us there. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is pretty exciting, is the SQL Server third-party backend for Django. So this is a big release because we are officially supporting Azure SQL Database and SQL Server. So it's great news and kind of it's about time. So hopefully this is something everyone is excited to see. And if you are a Django developer, you can now very easily get connected. And this is just kind of the get started sample. But really the goal from our team here is to provide a Microsoft-backed third-party backend for Django while leaving open that possibility of adding MS SQL as a Django core backend in the future. And we're just trying to kind of see what's going to be best for the community. So this is a great time to get involved, give your feedback, give your insights, and check out this new capability with Django. Now, when we talk about the Microsoft SQL Server blog, again, there's so many blogs, and that's part of the reason we do this show, so we can keep all of our different things in track, and you can kind of get the highlights from where you need them and then go deeper later. But one of the things here in the SQL Server Cloud blog was moving SQL Server licenses without software assurance to Azure. This was really interesting to me. I actually didn't really know anything about Azure Dedicated Hosts, which is what that blog is primarily about. But basically, Azure Dedicated Host is an Azure service that provides you with a physical server, which you can then host one or more virtual machines on. So this means you're going to have physical host level isolation. So you're the only tenant on the host, and the server is dedicated to your organization and your workloads. So this gives you the ability to be in kind of Azure with your own private cloud and have visibility into kind of everything that's happening on the host. So that was something interesting I honestly didn't know anything about. So if that piques your interest at all, go check out that blog. And then the other blog was about the Microsoft at the DPS Summit, or Data Platform Virtual Summit. This is an exciting time. This is in just a few weeks, but Rohan Kumar, I believe, did this blog post, and he talked about Microsoft's presence. Just to show a few highlights, myself, Bob Ward, and Buck Woody will be doing the keynote. We're super excited about it. I think the team also has something like over 20 sessions, including a Women in Tech panel with some amazing women in tech like Lindsay Allen and Ree Irish and others I'm sure I'm forgetting. But that's another thing to join in. Also, we have Data Gurukuls. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but this is time you can get one-on-one with various members from the SQL team to help you kind of troubleshoot or answer any questions you might have about SQL Server, Azure SQL, migrations, really anything. So that's definitely something to check out. Let me just check the comments real quick. I see you all are very active today. Cool. Some people are liking what we're saying. Mokamad says amazing. James says wonderful. James, I noticed you were asking some things about AI and quantum. This isn't really, we don't talk a ton about AI and quantum on this segment of the show. However, if you send me a DM on Twitter, I would be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. All right, so let's move right along and talk about the Azure SQL Techcommunity blog. You always see a lot of cool stuff coming through on this one. And, you know, this month is no exception to that. So the first one I wanted to mention is improved column store data loading using query store hints. Now, this is an opportunity, or really an example of how you can mitigate some various issues related to memory grants when you're trying to load a bunch of data into Azure SQL database. I actually found this example so exciting that we recorded a Data Exposed episode on it right after the blog came out. So that Data Exposed episode will be coming live in the coming weeks. So you want to check out that episode when it airs with Denzel. Also, some exciting blogs that came out around Azure SQL Managed Instance. One was an introduction to SQL MI Ops, which I like that. I think, you know, we've got DevOps, we've got ML Ops, we've got Data Ops, and now we have SQL MI Ops. But this was really just the kickoff of that series, I think. And the first things that customers face is resource creation. So this is part of, you know, that like that CRUD, create, read, update, delete set of commands. And so in this blog, they talk about how that works in Azure SQL Managed Instance and some of the things that kind of happen under the hood and some things you want to follow, like instance deployment, update, and instance deletion. So we talk a little bit more about how each of those things work. So that was an interesting one. We also had a blog about that Azure Purview event that I mentioned that's happening near the end of September. And then we had a few blogs that are part of this Managed Instance How-to series. Now, you all might remember if you joined last month, which hopefully you did, but last month during the Anna's Pick of the Month, every month I pick something, that's my favorite thing. I actually picked this series from Niko because I just thought it was so cool. So if you want to go check out some of the things I talked about there, you can check out our previous episode. I actually took a bunch of Niko's queries and turned them into a notebook. So that was pretty cool. But I love them because they're very simple and easy to get hands-on. But I have an exciting surprise for you. I'm actually going to bring Niko on and we're going to have him talk about some of these updates. And we're going to bring him on. I guess this is how he wants to come on. I apologize to anyone in advance, but here's Niko.
Hi, I'm Niko. Actually, it's not me. I will review the surprise. Hi, Anna. This is my my helper for tonight. He will be, spinning the slides because I have a couple of them. And then a little surprise, this one will be doing all the demos. So there are 3 of us, kind of.
Okay. Well, we are excited to have you, Niko and friends. But yeah, we just wanted to talk. I wanted to learn a little bit more about the Managed Instance How-to series and how you kind of came up with it and what's in it.
All right, so let's take a closer look at the Managed Instance How-to series. So hi all, again, my name is Niko. Don't try to pronounce my last name. I work as a senior PM at the best company in the world. And I'm here to spend like a couple of minutes to talk to you about the How-to series. We created this How-to series with a couple of ideas in mind. First of all, we are looking, what are the questions that people are looking on the net and cannot find the answers, or cannot find the definitive authoritative answers. And the other thought is, why don't we give to the people, to our users and customers, an opportunity to build something bigger, something we didn't think about. So we give you these little queries in order to give you a building blocks for your CI/CD pipelines, for your application, whatever you need to. So if you just stroll or head over to AKMS SQL minus how-to, sounds really bad, minus, but it should be plus, Anna, I don't know if web works this way, but well, we'll consider. So at this link, we have like an entrance to the series, and you can see on the right side of my screen the visual representation of the blog, where we will go through different categories and will be constantly updating with the new posts. So right now, what we have already publicly announced, we dive into the service discovery. We already published the first one of the high availability, and failover groups are coming and so on and so forth. But we also will be publishing a more proactive things like a quick fixes, maybe some performance optimization advices, and much more. So these are basically the categories that we are targeting. These are the 5 blog posts that are currently live as of today. So we give you the service tier basic details, because as you should know, we have the different tiers right now, the general purpose and the business critical ones. And we have multiple generations over the course of the years, and hopefully in the future there will be other ones. And determining them is a key to understanding what is the instance that you are dealing with. Then we deliver you a couple of authoritative ways with different permission sets of determining the number of the CPU cores, which is, if you are tuning your max DOP setting on anything else, you need to set up your resource governor. You need to know the number of cores you're dealing. These queries will give you an idea. Next one is the total amount of RAM, right? So scaling your application, your workload sometimes requires to be aware how much memory you have and how much of it you have already used, and for what you're using a buffer pool, maybe using column store object pool, maybe using hackathon. So these queries will give you the idea of what you have and what you have used. Next one is a reserved and available disk space. So we charge you on the disk space usage on the reserved and not exactly on the used ones. So these queries, which will allow you instantly to determine how much space you have. And bear in mind that for general purpose, you have the user databases disks and data files and log files stored on remote storage, which gives a very interesting angle, and we'll see it in a second. The last one is the timestamp of the last failover, and I'll explain a couple of things when we get there. We have our demo master, who will be, he already got the mouse, the Microsoft mouse. Anna, do we have a permission to jump over into the demo?
We certainly do. And, you know, I just want to highlight, Niko, that people are loving your entrance. You know, we had some people say that might have looked funny, some happy faces, you guys, and then they're laughing. And apparently Twitter was all over that as well. So, you know, we applaud your creativity, and let's, with you and your friend, walk through a demo. I'd love to see it.
So just while my friend is taking over and diving into the management studio, I want to give you know, the recognition, the deserved recognition for the best team in the world, hands down or heads up, whatever, the SQL MI team. A lot of the things were created by my colleagues who are not with me at this moment, but one day I'm going to bring them on the show to show the real heroes and the engineers who developed this. So in order, when you run any workload, any script, you need to be sure that you are running Azure SQL, the PaaS platform. And as you know, we have Azure SQL DB, we have Azure SQL DB Hyperscale, we have the Azure SQL Managed Instance. How do you determine that you are on the right place? Simply by using the server property engine edition and comparing it to the value of 8, as you can see here. And I will use the magic of the Zoom and my shaking hands, probably. We are indeed running the Azure SQL Managed Instance, the best PaaS offering in the world. I mean, I'm not really humble, as you might notice, but it's true. Anyway, so using the DMV C-Server resource stats, we can discover that in this case, I'm running the general purpose tier. Once again, as I mentioned previously, it means that the data and the log files are stored remotely outside of the VM, right? You should know this. The hardware generation, which one? Right now, it's the latest and the greatest, the Gen 5. Once again, sys resource, server resource stats, DMV will give you this information. By the way, you can still copy, spread those queries and comment. If you find some mistakes, please, we want them to serve for everybody and to be correct. So, using the DMOS job object, which is for the developers in you who might know what a job object in Windows Server is, which is a kind of a resource governor where you can join a number of processes to control them tighter. You know, yeah, resource governor for the developers. I can see that I am indeed running a 4 CPU V cores, and I'm sorry, need to resume it, but 20 gigabytes of 20.4 gigabytes of space. And because we are using some of this space in order to run the system and monitor, I can show you that we are actually giving you 16.2 gigabytes of actual RAM to use for your workloads. It's important to measure. I mean, trust, but verify, right? Regarding the disk use space, I'm using the server resource stats DMV, and I'm using the last entry, as you're noticing, and I'm ordering by end time, which means because I can, while I'm talking, I hope that Anna is not scaling my managed instance, and in this way it can change. But I can see that I have 288 gigabytes of space reserved, from which I have just used for my user database just 100 gigabytes. And I'm just like around 35% of the space has been used. And now here is a bonus point. We give you on general purpose 24 gigabytes of space per every vCore for free. Like, yeah, for free.
Nice.
So it's not kidding. And the more cores you use, and remember, we've got 4 on this managed instance. 4 times 24, how much is it? 96. You got it right, man. He's the best, you know. Demos and mathematical answers. So I can see that in my case, my TempDB is quite small. I have a lot of free space to use. And here is the nice query, which will work for both general purpose and business critical instances, deliver me the correct result. Even though I have 288 gigabytes of space reserved and paying, I get the ultra fast lightning SSD on the local VM, which will give me another 96, giving in sum 384 gigs of space. I'm probably out of time, and the last thing I'm showing you is failover time. Why is it so important? So you have two important concepts. The failover can happen during the maintenance, and upgrade and patching that we will do for you, and you can already soon manage that that window as announced. But in the meantime, you can also do a user-initiated failover for whatever reason you might need to. So knowing precisely, not looking at the, the earliest SQL agent log, what was created. We've got a timestamp for you. So as you might know, I love living dangerously, and 5 hours ago, risking my life, I did a manual failover test. Congratulations to all of us that I didn't fail. And on this note, I'm just wanted to go back and show the beautiful slides, how to find us. And please send us suggestions and needs. We would love to provide you with the right information for you in the best PaaS offering in this galaxy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Niko. This has been really useful, and I'm not sure what your friend's name is again, but maybe
I didn't invent it. I need to ask my daughter about this.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe next time we'll have just your friend on and not you.
Please do, please. I really appreciate this.
But thanks so much. I mean, even from our viewers, some people were saying you bring some flat stuff into 3D, which is awesome. Thanks. Someone was laughing at some of our content. I think mostly just your friend, maybe a little bit of you. It's unclear. But this has been really great, and I've learned a lot. I've actually gone through and run all these queries as well, and I'm just learning. Even though it's like simple queries, it's still very useful things to be able to, like you said, trust but verify, and also just be able to use for other purposes. So thanks so much, Niko, for doing this. We're going to keep tabs on your blog series and hope everyone checks it out.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, of course. Awesome. Niko brings a whole new energy, and I love it. Okay, so we had some questions come in, and I just wanted to spend just a moment chatting about those questions. This first question came from AK, and they said, Microsoft should provide up-to-date tutorials on Azure services. I am a student, and it has been difficult to start to configure and set up MySQL on Azure. So many options, but no proper documentation. Well, today is your lucky day, AK, because I'm hoping that I can show you some stuff you haven't seen before. So I know this is taking away from our show, but this is important stuff. If you're a student, if you're just getting started, this is something you want to check out. You can go to Azure for Students. If you just do a Bing or Google search, you'll find this. You get free credit that you can renew every year, as well as access to a bunch of free services, including SQL Server. And I think this is a basic tier database. So AK, I would start there for just kind of deploying and creating your own thing. In addition, as our team, we have developed some learning paths for you to learn more. The first one is Azure SQL Fundamentals. So again, a Bing or Google search, you should be able to find this on Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is a great place to go to, well, learn, but the great thing is that you can learn for free. So we actually have exercises in these, which give you free Azure credits so you can learn as you need. So we have that one, which might be interesting for more of a data professional. And we also have this one around developing full stack apps. So AK, maybe that's something you're trying to do. So you could go check out this learning path as well. The URL for this one is aka.ms/Azure Modern Apps. Pretty easy to find, but you can also head over to our Azure SQL Twitter or my Twitter to get that exact URL. Okay, and then the other question I wanted to highlight was about KQL, just because it was related. Again, Microsoft Learn is a great place to go. So if you just go to Microsoft Learn and search for KQL, you're going to find quite a few courses. One's a learning path, and one is some individual modules on, getting started or getting more advanced with KQL, and then even doing some specific things like with Azure Sentinel. So definitely something to check out. Hopefully that helps. So yeah, okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to highlight from our questions. I also wanted to, again, just thank Niko. People are really excited about some of the stuff that Niko was able to show us. So thanks, Niko, and maybe we'll be able to have him on the show again. All right, so let's move on, get back to our content. Let me show you all. We are going to continue with our blogs and videos. Really just one more thing I wanted to highlight, and that's the Azure Database Support blog. So if you haven't seen this blog before, Microsoft, you probably hopefully know this, but we have this huge support organization of support engineers and engineers that kind of help you whenever you have any sort of issue related to Azure, your Azure database. And sometimes after they have a case, they post some learning. So I always keep tabs on this one because it's very interesting to see some of the things that they learn and how they were able to address those. The first is troubleshooting AAD integrated auth for Azure SQL. So if this is something you ever come across, this blog goes step by step, talking through how they figured out what the problem was and how they addressed the problem. So that was a really exciting one. The next one was also pretty interesting. It was restore database across servers. So if you basically need to restore an Azure SQL database from one logical server to a different logical server, or one managed instance database to another managed instance. And the way they did this was using Azure Automation and PowerShell. They post all the scripts up there for you to use. I actually went through and tried this myself, and I was able to do it successfully, no problem. So that's a handy one to keep note of. Sometimes I go through, and as I see these blogs that are useful, I might not need them now, but I'm going to document them in my notes so that if I ever have to do this, now I know exactly how to do it. The final one was database parameterization. Now, this one was a little bit more specific, as it was related to enabling a Java application to connect to Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance. But if that's something you're trying to do, this blog post walked through the exact way you should import the required certificates and enable the Java application to connect. And then it also shows you how you can use extended events to kind of monitor what's going on here. So now that we've talked about blogs, videos, what's new, you want to know what's coming. And for that, I'm going to bring up the wonderful co-producer for the show, Marisa, to talk to you about what's coming up. Hi, Marisa.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Excited to have you as always. What do we have on the calendar this month?
We have a lot going on this month, especially for you, because I think you're at all of these events this month, so you'll be super busy. But right around the corner is DPS, and as Anna mentioned earlier, we have a huge presence there. DPS, the Data Platform Summit, is for the data and analytics community, and they talk a lot about the skills in the Azure data stack. Next week, I guess the 8th through the 9th, we have 3 pre-cons, getting the best out of SQL Managed Instance, data engineering best practices using Azure Data Factory, and migration and modernization journey to Azure. So we will have 3 pre-cons there. The week after is when our session starts. So we have over 40 sessions that we're presenting. We have Anna, Valk, and Bob doing the keynote. We have a WIP panel. We have the data gurkles, which are kind of like the clinics. We just have a huge presence at that event. So we hope to see you there. Also going on that week is the C# Corner Cloud Summit. And we have a lot of folks there too. We have Anna there, and Anna's doing the keynote there. We have Bob there, Pam, Silvano, others I'm sure I'm missing, but will be there as well. The week, or September 15th, Music City Tech. Again, Anna will be there doing the keynote for that one.
Geez, I'm crazy, Marisa. What did I do?
Yeah, no sleep that week. The Red Hat webinar, Bob will actually be presenting there. On September 16th, we have the Cloud Data Driven User Group. We'll be speaking there. Following September 28th, and Anna kind of mentioned this earlier, but this is the Maximize the Value of Your Data in the Cloud digital event. This is that Azure Purview event where Rohan Kumar will be speaking, as well as Michael Flasco. So tune in for that. We have the link to that one and all of these in our blog. September 29th, the Future Data Driven 2021 conference. And also on September 29th, the Azure Serverless conference. And Anna mentioned that one too, but that is a free virtual developer event conference taking place along with our Microsoft Learn TV folks. It's a free event, so attend that one. And we're also broadcasting in 3 different time zones, so there'll be content all across the board. You can join no matter where you are and talk to our experts. In addition to all of those events, we have our Data Exposed live shows, which is this show. On September 8th, which is next week, we have our Ask the Experts. This is a new one with David Pless and Pamela Hood. And we'll have you ask questions about SQL Server on Azure VM. There is also a link in the blog if you want to submit your questions ahead of time, submit them there, and then we can try to answer them on our ATE. On September 15th, we have a deep dive, Modernize Your Oracle Workloads to Azure SQL. And on September 22nd, we have another deep dive, Deploy IoT Solutions with Azure SQL Database, which, Anna, can I tease that one or?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, Anna has some great content also coming out with that. I won't say too much other than a lot will be going on that day. In addition to the live shows, we always have our on-demand weekly episodes. On Tuesdays, we have MVP episodes, and on Thursdays, we have all of the other episodes, and that is launched every Thursday. And if you want to see them, go to aka.ms/data exposed YT, like YouTube. And I think that is it. It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. All the links to these are in the blog if you want to learn more or register or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Marisa. Exciting month ahead. So hopefully folks will tune in. Awesome. Okay, so we have just a few moments left. I wanted to highlight a few more things to round out this awesome week of Data Exposed live news updates. One is my Learn module of the month. I think you all know, hopefully by now, that every month I highlight a module on Microsoft Learn. This month, I'm highlighting actually one of the modules from that learning path I just showed earlier. So building full stack apps with Azure Static Web Apps and Azure SQL Database. So during this module, what you'll actually do is you'll go through and you'll deploy and configure Azure SQL Database. We have a built-in Cloud Shell over here, and then you'll deploy an Azure Static Web App, and you'll configure and monitor the solution. So you'll basically get to use things like GitHub Actions and Azure Static Web Apps, which you can see here, and then you'll end up creating this solution here. So what you're seeing is this is a bus catching solution. So we have a geofence, and then we have a bus in the geofence and a bus outside of the geofence. This is just part of that overall solution that we're building throughout the whole learning path. So definitely recommend checking that out. And finally, we have my pick of the month. My pick of the month this month is the Azure Serverless Conference. This is something being put on by Microsoft, and I have the pleasure and honor to have been part of the session selection committee and be a big part of the event in the back end. And so I think you all are really going to like it. So I would recommend that you go ahead and register for it. We're running it across all three time zones. So hopefully, regardless of where you are in the globe, you'll be able to catch this at a reasonable hour. Different live sessions at each kind of section throughout the course of the 24 hours. So definitely go register for that. We really appreciate you tuning into this episode. Just a reminder, if you want to catch the blog or anything related to it, you can find it at aka.ms/news update. That blog is live already. Oops. That blog is live already, so you can get all the updates here whenever is convenient for you. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I know it's been a jam-packed episode and we are at time, but I really appreciate you joining. Keep letting us know what you want to see, what you want to hear more of, and we'll be sure to get that to you. If you like this episode, go ahead and like this episode, leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.